Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to Worship Drumming. This is a channel that helps you learn some of the most popular worship songs on the drums. And in today's video though, we're going to be going over more of a drum lesson. And this is something that I want to start doing more now, is doing more just general drum lessons that pertain around worship drumming. And so today's video, we're going to talk about one of the most important things in worship music, and that is builds. So today I hope to give you some different examples of builds and kind of just give you some different ways that we're going to use these builds in music. There's really three important things that you need to know about builds, or really three important things that go into making a really good build. So these three things are development and dynamics, your timing and placement, and your ending. In today's video, I'm going to talk about all three of these things, but we're mainly only going to go over development and dynamics and timing and placement. I'll make another video later about ending the builds, because this video would just be too long if I tried to add that in. So let's talk about what I mean by these and how we can do these. So let's start with timing and placement first. So what I mean by your timing and placement is, where are you going to put this build in the song? Generally in worship music, you're going to find a build in the pre-chorus or the bridge. So right before we go into the chorus, if the song has a pre-chorus, we're usually going to do some build through that pre-chorus or just something different to build that song into the chorus. If there is no pre-chorus, sometimes there's, maybe a bar of music or so left at the end of the verse for us to be able to build and then go into that chorus. Also, the bridge sometimes the entire bridge is a build, which is usually what happens, or sometimes we're going to build that last go around of the bridge as we get ready to go and just play full out in the chorus. So that's kind of what I mean by the timing and the placement of everything. Now, the real important thing is the development and dynamics of the build. So dynamics, what does that mean? Dynamics is basically just how hard or soft you're going to be playing your drums. So let me grab my sticks here and give you an example. This would not be dynamic. So let's say I'm coming out of the bridge and I want to build into this big section. This would not be very dynamic, because all that was about the same value. So if I am dynamic with it, I'm slowly going to kind of gradually build it. So gives it more of a feel, and you can feel that tension as it's building up. Now that was just a quick short example. Generally your builds will be longer than that. That is basically your dynamics. Now the development of your build is adding things to it, starting quiet and getting louder. There's all these different things you can add. So what we could do, and we'll go over these in examples later, is so maybe I'll start on quarter notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, then I'll switch to eighth notes, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now I know I wasn't very dynamic there, that was just more to show you the development of how I went from quarter notes to eighth notes, so that's pretty important. Now like I said, we'll talk about endings in another video. Today I just want to give you some solid examples that you can use, as well as try to get your mind working on some different ideas of builds you can play. Let's go ahead and start out with these. So to start here, we're going to start off real basic, and then we'll try to kind of build this up into more intermediate level stuff. So whenever we're playing a build, generally what we can do is we can play our snare drum and our floor tom together, and just playing those together, gradually building up, makes a really nice build. Also, what we're going to do is we're going to play our kick drum with those as well. So our right leg, our left hand, and our right hand are all playing at the same time. So it's just 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now for the simplicity of this lesson, we're just going to do everything in 4/4. I'll make another video later about building in 6/8, but right now we're just doing 4/4. So all we're going to do is just that 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. And what you want to do is you really want to work on making that gradual and slowly building up. And now understand that it doesn't just have to be for one bar. Work on doing this for maybe 2 or 4 bars, and really work on that gradually getting louder each time in each bar, every note, and just work on that. So this is a really good first build that everyone needs to learn. So I'm going to go ahead and plug this up so you can see how it's going to feel and how it's going to sound. Now that build might have seemed a little dry without having a big ending there, but that's a video for another day. I'll probably do one later in the future about how to end your builds. Because it's real important to understand that these builds are super important because we're bringing the music from one feeling to another feeling. With these builds, we're trying to just create some tension, some real emotion here in our music to go from one part to another. And you as the drummer are going to be leading the charges of that, and you are responsible for making sure that you get from point A to point B smoothly and not ending out at point C or some other place, because you want to make sure that you are at that peak at the end of that build where you need to be. So that's just kind of me stressing more of the importance of these builds. Moving on to our next example. Now this next one, what we're going to do is we're only going to add our kick drum on quarter notes. So this takes a little bit more thinking. It's the same thing with our left and our right hand, and we're just going to add our kick drum only on quarter notes. So it's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. I'll try to exaggerate my leg here so you can really see. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. This is just another really quick build that you can do, and it's effective and it works. We can add that together now. So maybe I want to start doing quarter notes, and then I'll do eighth notes later with my hands. So the first bar, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and eighth notes, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. That's just kind of a way to build it up. And notice also in that last build, before I plug this one in, notice in that last build that I was hitting a cymbal on those one counts. That's going to help you build it up kind of. So let me go ahead and plug this in, and I'll show you what it's going to sound like. The next thing I want to talk about is how to incorporate our cymbals into the builds. Like I said, if you're just doing stuff on the toms and whatnot, tom and snare, kick drum, you can hit that cymbal on the one count and it's going to really help this build up. Now, let's talk about using our cymbal the whole way through. So this is going to seem really similar to what you just did because it is very similar to what you just did. You might be like, man, you're just teaching us the same thing over and over. Honestly, when I learned how to do this, I started using it all the time. I love doing this so much. Just all I'm going to do is, instead of my hand here on the floor tom, I'm just going to move it up here to the ride cymbal, and I'm just going to play the edge of the ride cymbal on eighth notes along with my snare drum. Now here's the really cool part about this, before you're like, whoa, yeah, all this is just the same. At this part, you can really be dynamic in what you want to make louder. So what I think is really cool is during this, if I want my cymbal to get louder, then I'll start playing it louder than I play my snare drum. Or maybe I want my snare drum to come through a lot more, I'll play my snare drum louder than my cymbal, and you can just make it sound really cool in just a whole multitude of ways. Maybe you just want your kick drum to come through at first, and then later you want that cymbal to come through. So these are just some different ideas. What I'm going to do for this example, what I think is really cool, is if you kind of pulse the cymbal. What I mean by this is, so I'm going to start real low, and I'm just going to do light taps with 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, but I'm going to crescendo my cymbal every bar. So my left hand and kick drum are going to stay the same, but my right hand is going to change velocity. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So notice just as I go through each bar there, my right hand is getting louder on the cymbal, and I think that's just a real cool thing to do. So I'm going to go ahead and plug this up, and I'm just going to do eighth notes on my right hand, quarter notes on the kick drum. I might switch it to eighth notes, just kind of whatever I'm feeling in the moment. I kind of mentioned earlier, and that you could really notice that I did there, is on those one counts, I'm really going to emphasize where that one's at. So notice that I did hit my snare a lot louder whenever I got to those one counts. And so that just really helps your build out a lot, and it's just going to really make it just have a much nicer feel to it. So 16th notes, if you don't know what they are, you really should learn them. So all it is if you have your normal quarter notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, then you have eighth notes, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and 16th notes is 4 beats per every note. So 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. What we're going to do our first 16th note build, you can actually listen to this build on the song, I think it's Revelation Song by Phillips, Craig, and Dean. They use this build as they're coming out of sort of the bridge, going back into the last chorus. And this is also used, I think, on another Hillsong, We Are Running. This is one of the builds they use before they go into the chorus. So it's a really popular build, and it works really well. So you're just going to play 16th notes on your snare drum. So 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. And then you're just going to play quarter notes on your kick drum. So those are all going to fall every 4 beats with your right hand. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. And don't forget to gradually build this up before you start playing full out. So don't just full out go into it. So it's 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1. So just gradually build it up. I'll plug it in and show you what it's going to sound like. So the last thing I want to talk to you guys about is adding 2 of these different builds that I've already provided you. Just adding them together, and I've kind of already been doing this with the kick drum idea, you know, doing quarter notes at first and then doing eighth notes. So just really take some of these different ideas and then just combine them together. So what I want to do is I want to take the idea of just playing eighth notes on my right hand and left hand and kick drum, or just whatever I'm using, mainly my right hand and left hand. So just playing eighth notes there, and then changing those to 16th notes. So I got 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. Now that does get a little more hard and complicated to do. For some reason, whenever I double time that, I'll just count eighth notes just twice as fast as I would, which really isn't the best thing to do to keep in time. You should count it as 16th notes. But if that's just something that helps you like it helps me, go ahead and do it. So like I said, we're just going to start with eighth notes, we're going to go to 16th notes, and then we can even come up here on our ride cymbal and then do 16th notes that way. So like I said, what you can do is, if you're just like, man, these builds I'm doing all the time, they're just so dry and boring, take 2 of these ideas and mash them into one. That's kind of what I've been doing through this whole drum lesson. So what we're going to do here at the end is we're going to take the idea of just playing eighth notes and then changing those to 16th notes, and then maybe adding a cymbal. So we're just going to take all these different ideas and just kind of add them into one. Let's go ahead, plug this up. Hard to do on my acoustic electronic kit here that I'm just running off my laptop. But this is an idea, and I'm stealing this from Rob Brown, who's another drummer on YouTube he usually talks about doing some worship stuff. He has a lot of great videos. He kind of gave this tip in one of his videos when he was talking about builds, and I tried it out one day when I was playing an acoustic kit, and boy did it work. It was awesome. So what he talked about is you are going to play the first note of your build as if it were the last note of your build, and then you're going to play the rest of the build just how you would. So the first note, you're just going to slam into whatever you're playing, and then you're just going to start going light. So something like that. So I'm just going to slam that first note, then I'm going to play it as if I were starting at my lowest volume, and then I'm going to build it all the way back up to that volume. So whenever you give that big hit there, that's going to just kind of make everyone realize that, oh, we're about to go up into this big section. Like I said, it's hard to do it on this electronic kit, but when I did this on an acoustic kit, I think we were doing the song Your Glory / Nothing But the Blood by All Sons and Daughters. It just really made a difference hitting that first note. So I don't mean to steal from another YouTuber, but I just thought it was something so great I should share with you guys. So we're just going to plug it up and go through it real quick, kind of give you an idea what it's going to sound like. Before I get off here, I want to talk to you guys about something really important. You may notice that you probably already know these builds, or if you're new that you just learned them, that's great. But if you're just struggling to come up with builds and maybe these kind of seem very similar to the ones that you've been doing, unfortunately, that's the thing about builds in worship music, is a lot of the times they are pretty much going to be the same thing repeated. But the ending of the build is really what's going to make your build special and really lead you back into that chorus. That's why I just urge you guys to watch the next video that I'm going to be making. It might come out in a week or so. It's going to be about ending your builds. But I really want you guys to just really think about different ideas and ways that you can make builds to where they're not always the same and boring. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Please subscribe below if you're interested in more content like you saw in the video today. Leave a thumbs up if you learned something new. Leave a comment below of any suggestions or ideas that you have for the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next video.